As I speak, Britain is dealing with this new disease, COVID-19, which has so far claimed about 15,000 lives across the world. And there are many things I could say about this, but I just want to home in on two things. I've talked in previous videos about the difference between socialism, which I define very loosely as any form of government intervention, and laissez-faire, which is where the government lets everybody get on doing whatever they see fit. Now, the first thing that comes to mind is that there has been an outbreak of panic buying in this country, whereby supermarkets have been stripped of certain commodities such as toilet rolls, hand sanitizing gel, and rice, pasta, cooking sauces, and this is quite unnecessary stupidity and in some cases downright greed on the part of a lot of people. Some people are even selling on some things they bought at inflated prices, and the government's response has been laissez-faire. It has been to appeal to people to stop hoarding, to stop the panic buying. And okay, the last few days the situation hasn't been quite as bad as it has been more or less recently, but the main reason for that is probably because people's freezers are full of bread and they're beginning to trip over the piles of toilet rolls in their houses, and they're just thinking that there's time to ease off a bit. So there's no reason to think that the government's appeals to reason are being particularly effective. Also, the government has said that it's for supermarkets to deter this hoarding and panic buying. But the two problems with that is, firstly, that the supermarkets are dependent upon their own workers enforcing the rules. And I've come across at least one case in my hometown where supermarket staff did not enforce a rule. And the other problem is that even when the staff enforce the rules, it's easy to get around the rules. You go into the supermarket, you stock up on as much bread, toilet rolls, whatever it is you want to buy as you're allowed, and you take them to your car, put them in a boat, go back in and buy more. And as long as you go to a different checkout, it's highly unlikely that the supermarket staff will realise you're buying double what you're allowed to buy. So this is a situation in which some government intervention would be helpful, and I would particularly like to see the people who are profiteering, reselling at high prices, to be punished. Now, today there's been a lot of mayhem at schools because the government decided last week that schools would close as of this week, but would stay open for the children of key workers. And this was followed immediately by a debate about who exactly is a key worker. One national newspaper even asked the question, who is not a key worker? If you work in a jewellery shop, we can perhaps reasonably say you don't need to buy jewellery, so a jewellery shop worker is not a key worker. But what if you work in a grocery shop? People need food. So if you work in a grocery store, then you are presumably a key worker. And it reached a point late last week where the government apparently allowed schools to decide for themselves who was or was not a key worker. And it's reported today that some schools are letting pupils in because their parents are threatening to sue the schools if they do not take the pupils. So this is an example of where government intervention is unhelpful. Either the government should have very, very, very clear rules as to who is a co-worker and who is not. So, not a co-worker, a key worker, and who is not. And allow schools the scope to enforce those rules. Or they should not even try to rule in the first place. They should go for a laissez-faire approach and just say to people, keep your children off school if you want to. There are many things I could say about this ongoing COVID-19 situation, but I want to leave you with the thought that it is misleading to say that state intervention is necessarily better than laissez-faire or vice versa. There are situations where the one is better than the other, and we should not try to be dogmatic.